Then I couldn't understand how one person could make me doubt myself to the very core of my being, causing me to have less faith in those things that made up who I was once absolutely sure I was made of. I met Adrian, and I thought I'd finally found someone who really saw me. He had a soothing voice, even eyes, and a way of speaking that made his words sound like truths I could trust. What I didn't realize was that this calm wasn't honesty. It was control masquerading as stability. When we'd first begun dating, he had treated me as if I were the center of things. He called me every morning, texted me during the day, and wanted to know where I was, how I felt, what I thought. I took it as commitment, not understanding that he was in the midst of constructing a prison made from sweet words and tender moments. It's hard to say in hindsight, but every time he paid me a compliment, I'd like to believe that why it hurt was because behind the compliment was always a blade. For every reassurance, there was a caveat. Every promise held a condition. The first time was such a small comment, just a casual conversation about my friend Maya. She'd been a part of my life for years, loyal, funny, and truly supportive. She was the friend who would stop by unexpected and surprise me with a cup of coffee on a tough day. One afternoon, when I said I was going out with her, Adrian cocked his head to one side and smiled a little. "Do you honestly think she likes you? I mean, genuinely?" First I laughed, assuming he was joking. But he went on gently, as if he were protecting me. "I'm not suggesting she's a terrible person. But sometimes we only fake that caring when there's something in it for us. All I care about is keeping you safe. You're too trusting." That single sentence sowed a seed I didn't realize would become a forest of doubt. I started overthinking every interaction I had with her. I reran old conversations in my mind. I wondered what her laughter meant, whether this kindness had some ulterior motive. Adrian never said to stop seeing her, but he didn't need to. He didn't. He let me wreck the relationship on my own, nudging me toward a kind of social isolation where he was the only voice I'd listen to. Over the years, it wasn't only Maya. It was colleagues, family members, it was even my own instincts. And if I took issue with Adrian on anything, I didn't have to fight him. No, he just said something like, "I see where you're coming from," in that sort of exasperated tone that seems to mean I'm failing to acknowledge the obvious. Something important. Something he said only he was wise enough to know. And when I'd go on to explain what I was feeling, he'd tell me, "Sometimes your feelings get the better of you. It's okay. I am, however, here to keep both your feet on the ground." As a result of that subtle manipulation, every time the two of us would get into an argument, whether it was something big or small, I found myself with my tail between my legs, apologizing even though I didn't actually do anything wrong. He didn't shout, he did not insult me, and he didn't accuse me of anything ugly. That should have been hard to miss. Instead, he made me second-guess myself and my understanding of how it all happened. I actually started to believe him that I had a bad memory, misunderstood conversations, or simply overreacted to things he did or said that hurt me. It wasn't obvious betrayal. Not yet. His betrayal was not, at that time, with another woman. It was in the way that he slowly started convincing me of needing him to be my logical brain because apparently I was not capable of fulfilling this requirement on my own. And worse, he did it patiently, with a calm voice, with a gentle touch. He looks like a man who loves me, and I desperately wanted to believe he did. But the reality was, he enjoyed the power of influencing me to believe I couldn't trust my own instincts. The first time our relationship hit some real turbulence was around the 2-year mark, on a night when he didn't come home until close to midnight. He maintained he had been working late. Usually, I wouldn't have given it a second thought, but something seemed amiss. His effect was too calm, too rehearsed, as if he had practiced the explanation on the way home. When I murmured, "I was scared for you," he sighed, as if I'd been expecting too much for him to recognize my fear. "You're overthinking things again," he said gently. "You know very well I would not lie to you." It was such an ordinary sentence, but it struck me oddly. Not about what he said, but how it made me feel. I didn't trust him to my instincts. Only I didn't trust my instincts. He had trained me not to. Still, the doubt lingered. But the glare of it was now a shadow by which he was followed. A few weeks later, he was in the shower when his phone buzzed on the nightstand. I didn't usually read his messages. Not because of trust, but because he had spent so long saying that looking at someone's phone was evidence that I have issues. And I didn't want to be the insecure girlfriend he said that I would come across as. But that day there was something pulling me to the phone. Maybe it was intuition. Maybe it was exhaustion. Perhaps it was the small part of me that was still struggling for clarity. On the screen, somebody named Serena had left a message for him. Can't stop thinking about earlier. Wish we had more time. For a moment, I could barely breathe. I felt weak in my legs, and the room tilted. I clicked on the thread, and before I knew it, dozens of messages spilled open, filled with love, longing, intimate details of encounters I had never heard about. I was shaking so much I almost dropped the phone. My pulse was pounding in my ears as I read the words again, trying to will them into something else. Shitting myself trying to convince that I had only heard it wrong. Struggling to convince myself that I could trust the man who had taught me to distrust myself wouldn't betray me like this. But the messages were undeniable. He had been cheating on me for months. Not once. Not accidentally. Not in a moment of weakness. He had constructed an entire hidden life with another woman, and I was the one convinced I needed to change. I didn't call him out right then. I felt too numb, too broken. I waited for him to emerge from the shower. Watched as he dried his hair, looked at how it looked when he gazed at me with that face of quiet disbelief that I viewed him still as the safe one. The protector. The grounding force. Finally, noticing the look on my face, he frowned. What's wrong? I held up the phone. He didn't get angry. He didn't panic. He didn't apologize. Instead, he responded calmly, saying, "You shouldn't have gone through my messages." It was the brazenness of the sentence that shocked me most, even more than the betrayal. He was disappointed, but not at himself. He was disgusted with me. As if I had broken a rule. As if it were my fault, I discovered his betrayal. Before I could say anything, he continued, "This is the exact type of thing I was talking about. You are emotional and reactionary. You're overreacting." The anger that ascended within me wasn't brash. It wasn't explosive. Still, it was dark and cold. The kind of anger that arrives when you've been in denial for so long and then wake up to reality. Overreacting. I whispered. You lied to me. For months. He shook his head slowly, the way you would explain something to a child. You're misunderstanding everything. Serena is just a chick I talk to when work gets too much. We were just having fun. We didn't mean anything by it. But the messages said otherwise. Each word was a confession he would not confess. He inched closer, resting his hands on my shoulders. You're letting your insecurities contort this. You know how you get. That's when I felt some kind of release in me snap, not a breaking, destructive force, but a freeing one. Like a chain breaking. I had allowed him to define me for years. But in the back of my mind, I knew something was wrong. It's just that when you don't trust your instincts, you're always living in someone else's version of reality. I stepped away from him. He looked surprised, almost offended. I'm not doing this again, I muttered. I'm not going to question myself because of you. He snorted, as though to deride the very notion. You're being dramatic. But for the first time, his words failed to burrow into me. They slid off. They lost their power. I walked out of his apartment that night trembling and with a broken heart, but also with the tiniest flicker of something I hadn't experienced in years, clarity. I had a few rough weeks after that. Even though this person had been unfaithful to me, there was a part of me that felt bad that I left. That's manipulation for you. It fools you into thinking that you're to blame for your own happiness. He kept messaging me, saying I was being insane, saying I was throwing away something secure. He even went to mutual friends trying to claim that I had misread the whole thing. Some believed him. That hurt too. But bit by bit, I started to put myself back together. I was reaching out to people I had sort of detached from. Maya didn't think twice before forgiving me, and when I apologized for withdrawing, she said something that would be with me forever. True friends don't punish you for getting lost. We help you come back. I began therapy. I discovered what gaslighting was and emotional manipulation, and then the fangs of how discreet control is more damaging than cruelty perpetrated under your very nose. I saw how many red flags I'd overlooked because they'd been presented to me carefully wrapped in kind words and soft gestures. I discovered as well that if you cherish someone, it should not be an exercise in proving your worth. It was months before I felt like I could breathe without thinking of him. And even though the memory of his betrayal was still a painful one, I was no longer bound by it. Months later, I woke up one morning and felt at peace in a way I hadn't experienced in years. I made myself coffee, opened the windows, and soaked in sunlight. I gazed at the reflection in the glass, the woman who used to doubt all things about herself, and I was proud. Proud for leaving. Proud for healing. Proud to have reclaimed those parts of me that he tried to take from me. He managed at one point to shift the responsibility for his betrayal onto me. But ultimately, I discovered something stronger than his lies. I found myself again.